right, welcome to the first Enduro Method podcast. I'm Joshua Rempel here with Dane Tony, and we will be kind of interviewing each other for these first two, just so give an opportunity for you guys to get to know us. And then from there, who knows, looking forward to having some guests on, talking enduro, dirt bikes, training, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So we're just here to share some knowledge and experiences with everyone. So today I'm going to be interviewing Josh to kind of find out who he is, so you guys get to know him and his background. So Josh, tell us about where you grew up.
Right, so I grew up in a little town called Auberry in California. Auberry is kind of central north to south and east to west on the east side of the Sierras. So I think it's like an hour and a half or 2 hours south Yosemite Valley. A lot of people know that for reference. Or Fresno was the closest big city. So where I grew up was in the foothills. It was a great spot to grow up, honestly. I had a lot of fun. Grew up on like a 5-acre area, so it wasn't super crowded. Got to do all the outdoor things. That's also where I lived there till I moved out for school. So like I think I was 18 or 19 when I left, and my parents actually still live in the house I grew up in. It hasn't burned down yet. Sorry, California. But so yeah, it was a great spot. Had a lot of fun. That's also where I got my first dirt bike, back there. 1976 XR75. Pretty awesome. Wish I still had it. But yeah, just terrorizing the ground squirrels on the 5 acres, basically.
Yeah, so tell us how you got into dirt biking.
That was it. I don't know what it is. I've always loved things on two wheels regardless. So if I couldn't dirt bike or didn't have one, I was riding my pedal bike all over the place. We had a long dirt road, so we had two entrances, but we literally lived in the middle. So I think the dirt road was like a mile long, and we were half mile in one way and a half mile in the other. And so, yeah, we would and then had a nice T there with another dirt road that went up, and enough hills that they weren't crazy hard for little kids, but hard enough to give you a challenge. So pedal biked all over the place. When I finally did get a dirt bike, again, I was trying to build, tracks through the foothills. I don't want to call them woods. It felt like woods. We had a couple of creeks we'd go through. Thought they were like ravines. I go back now and I'm like, really?
You thought it was like waist deep?
Yeah, but had a lot of fun. And then, as we got a little older, some of my friends got dirt bikes. And so every weekend we'd try and finish our chores or whatever and get out there and just go ride together, just somewhere. I think I've been on one real track in my life, and it was when I was...
Like a motocross track?
Yeah. I've been on a couple now, but not a lot. But back then, like, we didn't have, we dig a hole to build a jump that didn't have a landing, and then the hole, your dad would walk back there and be like, where's the hole? We're like, we were building a jump. And he's like, well, fill it back in. You're like, come on, let's get a tractor. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And yeah, just always loved it. And I grew pretty quickly later. So as I'm kind of...
So you were really small?
Yeah, I was average. I wasn't super small.
You should tell people how big you are now in case they don't know.
So I'm 6'4", 225, 220. So on the larger side, pretty tall. But I was medium or average, I would say, through like probably sophomore, junior year.
Of high school.
I was on the taller side, but I wasn't like super tall. Like I grew a lot after high school too. But I grew a whole bunch right after I got my dream bike. So like...
So you're like, nice new bike, and then...
Yeah, eighth grade, I got a 19... And this was like 95. So in 1995, I got a 1994 YZ80. This was like... It couldn't get any better. And And within like 6 months, it looked like, I don't even know, it's just a clown riding a tiny little bicycle. um, so, and then high school hit, sold the bike, and then kind of team sports took over for a long time. So I was a football, basketball, baseball athlete. Played that through high school, all three, well, ish. And then after high school, kind of tried to play a little football. Didn't really work out. I wasn't terribly inclined to go to class. So that didn't help for being eligible to play football. And then in 2006, I think it was, I moved from California to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I moved out here for work. I was a carpenter, finished woodworker. So came out here to do cabinetry. And for the first, I think from like 2006 to 2011, that was kind of my main job. And so I was working in a cabinet shop, I think it was around 2008 or so. My coworker, who had just met, you know, and we were like a week in, and he's like, "Hey, do you dirt bike?" I was like, "I used to. I used to love to ride motorcycles." He's like, "You should get a dirt bike." I was like, "Yep, probably should." So started looking around at some classifieds, went to a local moto dealer. Yeah, I picked up a KTM 300. And so
What year?
It was a 2005 300. Got a screaming deal on it. And
Was it like $1,200 or something?
I got it for $2,000.
Oh.
but I mean, this was only 2010. It was great. And so got that, started to ride some, not a whole lot. I mean, that's the thing. Like looking back, I'm kind of kick myself for all the time wasted. I could have been out there getting some more hours in. But you know, kind of we get like 4 months of riding time here. Really, it's hard with the elevation of the valley. We get a whole bunch of snow. And so we kind of get from mid-June till, just depends when winter starts hitting, but maybe
you can push into October sometimes.
Yeah, mid to late October, maybe early November if you're lucky. So it's not a big window to ride. And so when you can, you really need to pack it in. Let's just say I wasn't packing it in very well. And then the whole CrossFit and competing of CrossFit and training, which, you know, of course we'll get into at some point, was taken over, and that really cut into my dirt biking time because of injuries, potential injuries and stuff like that, and the need just to be training all the time to try and compete at a level that you need to try and be at to compete with there. And so it wasn't until probably, I think it was 2017, that I kind of really focused on riding more. And so I'd say from 2017, it's still been a pretty steady progression for us. Every year we kind of log more hours, try and arrange our life a little bit more toward getting more time on the bikes because it's just something we love to do.
Why is it that you like riding so much? Tell us about that.
That's a hard question. Honestly, it's so many things. I can go ride and not think about anything else except exactly what I'm trying to do, and like come out of this. I mean, I call it essentially a flow state. There's nothing that I've ever done in my life that I can get into a flow state like I can on a dirt bike. I mean, I'll get them training, honestly. Mountain biking, like there's something that works for me on wheels that just like lights that up.
Tell us about how CrossFit meshed, like how that whole transition happened, or how they relate.
Complement each other.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so for me, when training's always been a big part of my life too. Like I would say it's dirt bikes and then training. And I think those two things combined have helped save me somewhat from myself. And so in 8th grade, I got my first weight set. And literally from that time on, I've been lifting weights at some point throughout, and it's always been geared toward performance. It's never been about necessarily aesthetics, even though can be a good bonus, but it's always been about being able to do the things I want to do better. And so having done that from a young age and then trying to seek out people who could help me on that journey has always been a big part. So, I mean, I remember my junior year of high school, I was a quarterback, and I got my center and my wide receiver to come, but anyways, on the team, to come with me 3 days a week. We drove an hour and a half each way to train with this guy that we knew was a good strength coach. And so it was a 3-hour round trip. We did it 3 times a week for like 2 months through the summer. And that was the first time I'd ever done any Olympic lifting. So he knew a little bit, the snatch and clean and jerk. So that was my first introduction to that. And yeah, it was awesome, great experience. And it's one of those things too that back then, it's funny to say back then, but the amount of information available just wasn't there. Like I couldn't just jump on a computer and Google it and get just
training
loads.
Programs.
Yeah, like, I mean, the training I actually found recently a couple of my programs that I'd written up and typed, and I was like, these aren't that bad.
From like how old were you?
Like early high school.
No way.
Least. Yeah. But it was, that was like gold. I mean, I'd heard these things like 5x5 mad cow and rip it to a 3x5, and I'm like, what's that? And so I'd, hound my parents to buy the video cassette or something so I could watch it. And yeah, it's always been a big part of my life as well. And then through high school, I was a kid who was like building things to go train. So I had built these plyo boxes that I could go jump on out by my basketball hoop. So I'd go shoot and then jump on boxes and go shoot. And I built this wooden sled that I'd drag up and down and do sprints on the road. And it's just always fascinated me. And I've loved the fact that these things are basically free. Like, you can improve yourself constantly. Just takes a little bit of discipline maybe, or I don't know, got a goal out there, go get it.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Going back to like just dirt biking, you got into racing recently. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've always needed I think some type of outlet. For me, it just helps me focus on things. So I think I was a little lost from like after the football thing didn't work out up until I competed.
Until you met me.
Yeah, exactly. So like from football not working out up until finding that gym in Jackson, Wyoming when I moved there, Mountain Tactical Institute. That gave me a competitive vice or whatever you want to call it again, and that was huge because I was kind of drifting and I didn't really have any direction and I really needed some, and so that really helped me get some focus. And then from there, once I'd been doing that long enough, CrossFit was kind of getting bigger in 2011, 10, and every year it was bigger. 11 was bigger, 12 was bigger, and then
monumentally bigger.
Yeah, it was huge, and I started to be like, well, I could do what those guys can do. Can I compete? And so then I wanted to compete in CrossFit, and so I ended up doing that and went to qualify for regionals in 2012. Did not qualify in 2013. Came back and qualified in 14 and 15. With the goal of trying to make it to the CrossFit Games. That never panned out, but it was still an amazing experience, and being able to go to the regionals was awesome as well. And then tried kind of competitively, I'd say 16, 17. And during those 2 years, though, that's where Dana and I kind of got together, my girlfriend now, who I co-own Target Athletics and Enduro Method with as well. And so
2012.
We started dating in 2012, but we started riding together in like 2014-ish. I think.
I bought my bike in 2013.
Okay.
So, but I mean, I think we only rode the 4x4 track.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of 2-track. Yeah.
I think they were actually just roads. I don't even think you can classify them as 2-track.
Yeah.
Like you could fit a full bus down the road.
Yeah, so we were doing a little bit of riding, but not a whole lot because, I mean, to be able to try and compete in CrossFit, you got to train basically as soon as your season ends, you get like 2 weeks and then you're back at it because the level every year was just going massive. And so...
Well, the last year you competed was wasn't it 2017 when they did the Masters?
Yep.
So you were an individual in 2015, didn't make it.
12, 14, and 15 individual.
Right. But
no teams here.
But in 2015 you went 16. You were close, but I think you messed up your neck. Well, you hurt it dirt biking.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's your sign.
Yeah, I went over the bars, pretty good clip, and screwed my neck up. And then got a different coach in 2017. And as we were talking about these things, basically I got told I couldn't dirt bike. And so I think I rode once that whole summer. And then,
so 2017.
Yeah, coming out of that, I was like, there were a bunch of other factors, but actually my coach did a really good job of helping me see that my heart wasn't in it anymore. And so I was able to walk away feeling, it felt good. I didn't feel any, like, it didn't feel like I was letting myself down or I didn't want to put the work in or any of that. It was just a kind of divergence of goals. And so as soon as that happened, we were like, let's do some races. So I think the first race we both, Dana had done it. Oh no, it was a Hare and Hound.
It was the pumpkin classic.
Yeah, the Cedra pumpkin classic or whatever it is. And that was a interesting experience. Just got ass handed to me. It was great. And I was like, wow, got some work to do. So then from there, I think that same year we did Idaho City 100 for the first time.
That was October of 2017.
Yeah.
And then we did Idaho City that following year in 2018.
Yep. And then I think we did the Silver Mountain Extreme as well. Mm-hmm. And then just the comparison from like more your traditional enduro time trial setup to the hard enduro, we were both like, the hard enduro is where it's at for us. Like,
it's just more of what we ride.
Yeah, it was just that style, like the challenge of the terrain and all that stuff is definitely more what we enjoy leaning more toward. Not to say the other stuff's not amazing and great and you should go do it, but yeah, we've definitely found over the years that we lean a little bit more toward the hard enduro.
How does that relate to like training?
For me, I think hard enduro and CrossFit are very similar. I like the comparison because I think in CrossFit, it's just a grunt. It's a lot of hard work to begin with, right? And CrossFit pulls all these specialties into one kind of thing. So you got to be proficient at Olympic weightlifting. I mean, if you're trying to compete at a high level in CrossFit, your Olympic weightlifting is almost to where you're qualifying for like American Open or Nationals. Right, so pretty high level Olympic lifting, but you're not the best at it. You're okay. You get B platform maybe, and then gymnastics, right? Again, you're nowhere near as competent as even probably a high level. Well, we'll just say a high school gymnast, but you're also competent enough to be able to do some of the stuff for like the kipping movements and the muscle ups and all, and the handstands and handstand walking and stuff. So you're pulling from all these other specialties and kind of you're not the best at any of them, but you're decent enough at all of them to put together this kind of complete CrossFitter or rider. So I think of hard enduro as something that pulls from, obviously the best hard enduro riders have a massive background in trials. And I've always thought of gymnastics and CrossFit like trials and dirt biking. Like if you got a trials background, man, you're already just a leg up. But on the flip side, if you don't, that's just one more awesome thing to go learn on a dirt bike. So, it's just nothing but pluses. And then, if you got a little motocross in you got to jumping, cornering, all that stuff. If you got the enduro, you're a little bit faster through the woods. So, like, all these things just can kind of come and coalesce, can be, it just make for a more whole rider. And then fitness, very important.
Insert Enduro Method.
So being able to get on the bike and express yourself, and ride and control, it's huge. So for me, I had way more fitness than I had bike skills. And that really helped in the beginning because I could muscle through things and put in long days on a bike I was completely whooped and exhausted at the end, but I was able to come back and do that repeatedly over and over. And then as my bike skills got better and I became a better rider, and I've always had that level of fitness, I think for me it's just been a dramatic help. And of course also being able to prevent, not all obviously because it's a hard sport and it's dangerous and things don't always go the way you want it, but it definitely helps keep the potential of injury down.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I could not agree more. What is your favorite upgrade that you've done in the past year?
That's a hard one. Probably every time I get a new bike, I feel like that's a pretty good, solid upgrade. It's hard to say. So being as tall as I am, I'm constantly on the lookout for what other tall riders either have done in the past or what they're doing now. Again, I'm 6'4", 220, 225. So I don't find a lot of riders that are as heavy as I am. Usually if they're as tall as I am, they're a lot lighter. Like I know Cody Webb's up there in the 6'3", 6'4" range. Keith Curtis is up there. So I'm always, and there's definitely been more out there. Was it Michael Knight? Not Michael Knight. David Knight over in the UK. Enduro, more trials enduro rider. Pretty tall, big guy. He's definitely, I think, closer to me in weight. Anyway, so trying to see what they do and then copy it, try it, and see where it goes. So I remember back in the day, I used to put risers on. And then over the years, I've gotten rid of the risers. And then this year, actually going to a low bar setup. So about an inch lower than stock. And then not moving the bars all the way forward in the triple clamp. So I think I'm kind of in like the number 3 position currently. I did that all right before Kingamoto. Also got rid of my drop pegs. So regular peg height, short bars, moved them in a little bit. And had really no time on the bike before going and racing.
Super smart.
Yeah, I like to just kind of throw it in there and give it a try. I mean, what else are you going to do? We're in Idaho, so I got...
winter Idaho.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to test it or ride it, so might as well just do it and see what happens. And it worked out great. I actually really liked it. Took a little bit of getting used to in the beginning, but it makes me definitely bring my chest more forward, stay in more of attack position. I was a little concerned about the downhills, having like a center of mass more forward on something super steep. At least that's how my head was kind of going, but it actually felt really good. So, and of course the uphills made it way better just because it makes you stay a little bit more forward and keeps you same center of mass a little bit lower. So there's less tendency that front end to always want to climb up. Figuring out mooses, that's been a long journey. And that's basically, I feel like trial and error. Going from, I almost feel like it's kind of cheating now because we can get the soft mooses here, through like the Nitro Moose or New Tech or whatever. Whereas even 2 years ago, maybe 3, I don't know when exactly they came out with that one, but you'd have to get the hard moose and then you'd play around with either shaving it or drilling it or get the moose, run it for 2 months, pull it out, let it sit. But then by the time sometimes you come back, it sat too long. So then it was harder and smaller than it should have been before. Or I don't know. It's definitely been a learning curve trying to get all that figured out. And it's definitely not figured out 100%. But now with being able to get the soft moose, basically you could run it out of a box at a hard enduro race and it's going to be pretty good. I still like to put a little bit of time on them first and then depending on the race, maybe even drill it. But that's become a little bit simpler. But that took a long time to kind of play with. The tires that are available now are incredible. So it seems like it's a lot easier to get really good setups than it probably was, 4 or 5 years ago even. Other than that, again, for me, being a bigger rider, suspension every time. I don't even really ride the bike first. Ship that off, get it resprung, and then whatever else needs to happen depending on how good the stock setup is. But springs are huge, being as heavy as I am.
Shout out to Deja Moto.
Hey! You
mentioned King of Motos. You want to just briefly talk about that real fast?
Sure. It was a good time. Let's see. Last time we were on the bike this year before the King of the Moto race was October 25th of last year.
Of 2020.
Then we put the bikes up and basically prep them and then go beginning of February and go race. So
we rode one time in Boise.
Yeah, that wasn't that awesome. It was really cold. And so yeah, it's kind of coming out there off the couch and go race. And I remember being halfway through the time trial, the first 6 mile loop, and just being like, I don't even want to be here. This sucks. And then after probably mile 4, kind of started to warm up a little bit, feel a little better, finished the time trial, got into the first heat for the start or first wave. And then, I think it was 2 hours after the finish of the time trial, started the main race. And it was a lot of fun. It was, the course was definitely, I'd say, easier than last year, but it's King of the Moto. So nothing really flows. You're just getting beat up for, however long you're out there. This year it was a 14-mile course, and it was 2 laps to finish for time, essentially. And I didn't think there was anything that was, I thought last year's course definitely had more technical sections. This year there wasn't anything that was super crazy at all. All very rideable. It was just a matter of sucking it up and keep pushing, because at least for me, it's sometimes easy when you're out there by yourself and you haven't seen anybody for a little while or heard anybody for a little while, and you're 2+ hours into a race and you kind of go, I can just kind of take it easy a little bit, or just a quick shake the hands out, and then I don't know, you add all that stuff up at the end and you're looking at 15-20 minutes of just wasted time, and it doesn't gain you anything, because if you sit there for 5 or 10 seconds, as soon as you start going again, you're right back where you were. So it's kind of time wasted. I feel like it'd be a better bet to just keep grinding and keep cruising, and then stop for 30 seconds and take a bite of food and drink of water. And if you break those rest periods into one, maybe a little bit longer one, but don't let yourself do a bunch of short ones, you're going to have a better outcome at the end. That part of it is very relatable to a typical CrossFit WOD or something, because if you're doing an AMRAP style, right, which would be as much work as you can do in a certain duration of time, and what you'll find is if you start doing these little rests in between each movement, or breaking your sets up into really small sets and these little breaks, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they just add up to the end of so much wasted time. And that could be either in transitions or rest in between reps that maybe you didn't need to, you just thought you did, kind of thing. So from a mental standpoint, that's really relatable to being out there on the course, because again, you can go harder and you can go a little further, maybe not super fast, but you can always get a little more. So keeping that in mind when you're out there, it's gonna save a lot of time, because once the race is done and you start looking at the scoreboard, you're gonna want to keep as much of that time as possible.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. So next question, where do you feel you are the strongest when it comes to riding? Or fitness, or life, or whatever. We could take this whatever way.
Strongest on the bike? I think I've had a decent amount of... I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I got more weaknesses than I got strengths, for sure. I think I'm pretty good at assessing terrain fairly quickly and picking good lines. I think I'm pretty good at not getting over anxious or like super...
Keep it cool.
Yeah, like a level head. I push myself, but I also try not to do stupid things. Well, there's like, if you're at a level, let's say you're at a level that you could potentially try this like kind of sketchy cliff, right?
Like the Jersey barrier.
Well, that's a different story. But if it's like 5 to 10% outside your, let's say, your skill level, depending on how exposed it is, maybe, that's probably a good range to push yourself and maybe attempt it, right? Now, if that's 20 to 30% outside your skill level, that's not something you should be doing yet. And so there's levels of stupidity, I would say, that are good and bad. So I feel like I'm pretty good at staying within that level of like learning. I would call, I'd say 5% outside your comfort zone is a great spot to always be pushing, because you're gonna build confidence. Sometimes you'll make it, sometimes you won't. But when you start pushing into that higher level percentage outside of where you should be, not only is the potential for injury higher, but when you're constantly failing at things, you're not able to build confidence there either.
Yeah, that's a great point. Where are you the weakest? What is a weak point for you?
Like what course, right? I think the thing I'd phrase it this way: instead of saying this is where I'm weakest, this is where I'd like to grow the most.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to up my trials game, for sure. And it's a lot of fun. I started doing a lot more last year. Did some local competitions and stuff, and it's a blast.
Awesome. Well, this has been fun. I really hope everyone has gotten to know you a little bit better. One of the other half of the persona behind Enduro Method. Anything else you want to leave with the listeners?
No, I'm looking forward to continuing to do this with you, Dane, and putting out some good info, and excited to see where this podcast can go.
Yeah, we're excited. All right, well, thanks for listening, and thanks for tuning in. However you close the podcast, this is our first episode, and we'll be back with another one shortly. We hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you next time.